So we're here for another episode of The Sidebar. I'm here with KC Poulin, longtime friend, mentor. I can't say enough about this guy because, just a minute ago I was telling, this is the guy who got me started smoking cigars. You know, I remember sitting in parking lots at the end of the night having a cigar with you. We're at the Grand Cathedral Cigar Lounge, one of my new favorite places. So I thought it would be adequate, to sit down and talk with you a little bit about.
It's a phenomenal place to have a cigar in the afternoon on a Friday. Come on.
I love this place. You got a koi pond right here, so it's really nice. But back to business, and it's KC Poulin, 2 letters, KC, because I always see emails. Everybody always wants to spell it out, KC.
Sometimes.
I just always get a chuckle out of that.
That's how I know if they know me or not.
Yeah. But going back to, really, executive protection, basically, this is where I started out with you, critical intervention services. And critical intervention services was pretty much like the premier agency out there that kind of like set the standard for everybody else. You were established in 1992, right? Still in business, very successful. I think at one time, I thought you had the largest private patrol fleet in the United States.
Southeast region for sure, if not the entire South.
Yeah. Oh, and then we have Nikki. Thank you, Nikki. But how did you even? Where was the mindset when you created critical intervention services? Where did?
So, the industry is a very unique animal. If you're good at what you do and you spend time to develop your skill set, you can be successful. And we did that with a company called EDSI, Executive Defense Systems International. We did that back when we graduated. Myself and my partners all graduated from ESI back in 1989. And we wanted to do a business that focused on executive protection. At the time, we called it executive protection.
Yep.
And it went really well for a while. We did some really cool stuff. Ended up protecting Archbishop Desmond Tutu, I think was my first protectee. Rosa Parks was my second protectee. So we had good traction, we had good synergy, and we had made some good money the first few years. But we could have never grown that business because the problem that we realized with executive protection is it's situational. So you may have a lot of work and then no work, a lot of work and no work. Anybody who's been in the business understands.
Feast or famine.
Yes, feast or famine. And so we decided to relocate EDSI, rebrand. We created critical intervention services, and we extended our offerings to our clients. We realized that if you're going to have clients, you need to have a one-stop shop. You need to be able to solve their problems. Whatever those problems are, they revolve around risk management, right? Threat management of different types, not just executive protection. So we re-engineered the firm and spent the next 2 years, from 1992 to 1994, rebuilding a uniform division, creating more steady income streams, so that when we did have executive protection details, or what we call today threat management details, they may have been situational and a lot of fun and large details. We've had 20-man details, for example, for Herbalife, Mark Hughes when he was alive. But we never relied on executive protection to be the breadwinner. Our uniform services was the breadwinner. Our consulting and our executive protection services and some of the other unique things that we developed along the way became add-ons. They became extra revenue streams, but never did we have to rely on them. And I think that made a big difference for us. We grew CIS to be, with all companies involved, we had 6 companies altogether between CIS, our training school S2, Aegis Protective Services, the unarmed security company, Systech, our technology company, government services, full-time employees. We're looking at about 350 employees plus contractors. So we're in the 500 people range, and hurricane deployments to regular vehicle patrols to you name it.
It's funny that you say that about how being diverse and different revenue streams and things like that. Even executive protection today, back when I first got into executive protection, you're thinking about close protection.
Yeah.
But now it's more of like an umbrella, and it seems like all these other things fall underneath it. That's why I named my course Protective Detail Specialist course.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot more involved in it, especially with like workplace violence issues, things like that,
which is
suppression.
One of the biggest revenue streams right now is workplace violence. Listen, if you're still in the business calling it executive protection, I think you're missing the boat. The protective services, even if you're dealing with executives, if it's a successful executive, he's interacting with other executives as well as many times celebrities, special events, and really what you're doing, if you're trained in doing this work, what you're really doing is threat management.
Yes.
And that involves threat assessments, and that involves personnel that are threat management specialists. And in the end, if you're running an agency, you're coordinating the orchestra that goes around a protectee to manage their threat, equal risk, right? So we're either reducing risk, mitigating risk, transferring risk, eliminating whatever it is that we're doing with risk. Threat is risk, and that's what it comes down to.
You mentioned the training school, S2 Institute, been around for a long time. I know you're not big on social media all the time.
I'm not.
But some of these groups and stuff, I'll see people still, they recommend somebody's like, hey, can anybody recommend a training course or something? And S2 still pops up. Yeah. Even the EP program
which
hasn't been around. But people are still like pushing it out there and stuff.
So we made a conscious decision at S2 to move away from what became a saturated market. Executive protection training is a saturated market, and there's a lot of folks in it that maybe shouldn't be in the training business, and they're teaching the wrong things. And so we had a program that we kept at CIS that S2 taught for us, so that when we hired someone, we put them through our training.
Yeah.
No matter where you came from, this is how we do it at CIS. So take everything that we're going to give you, because that's how we expect you to operate, and whatever doesn't fit here, leave it at the door, right? That type of approach. Yep. And that keeps a detailed cohesion, right? To make sure that the whole detail, the members of the detail fit in within a plan, especially emergency response plans. So, but we did away with that, and we focused more on the anti-terrorism side of things. We focused more on the school security issues and trained security school protection officers, and we just shifted out of that space and into different spaces.
I remember when you started the anti-terrorism officer program.
We did. Actually, it was the first private sector anti-terrorism program that eventually became a live program deployed in a utility power company, where we were audited by the GAO and were labeled as a model for the rest of the country.
Yeah,
which was a pretty cool thing.
Very cool thing, because I think CIS was the first private company to get waivers for AR-15s
in the state of Florida.
Yeah. It was
the motto for the ATOs during training, there was a question that came up: what if they land by a helicopter? And the instructor says, "Well, if they buy the ticket, give them the ride." And that stuck. That actually became part of the mantra on the coin, on the challenge coin. But it was a very successful program for 13 years. Shortly after 9/11, obviously, it was needed. And for us, that's the kind of stuff as practitioners we like to get into. We like to create new things. We don't want to stay in the space where everybody's trying to compete in that same limited space. We're trying to create new space for us to get into and find new approaches as a practitioner to get in there and actually do problem solving, right? So CIS is a problem solving organization. We don't just say we're going to do it, throw manpower at it. We try to figure out, how do we do this, and what is the best way to go about this? And sometimes, it takes us a long time. We took one study took us 15 months to start a problem-oriented solution approach to a client. 15 months of study before we actually deployed a plan. But that program is still going on 8 years now into the making.
Yeah, you're definitely methodical in everything that you do.
We try.
Everything is well planned out, and you never go in not knowing what the end result's going to be.
Yeah,
usually.
Because if you fail, people's lives are at stake, liabilities are at stake, entire businesses are at stake because of the liability associated with some of the things that we do. So you have a responsibility as a professional to really think through. And look, it's not just me. I'm talking, our team is a phenomenal team, starting with Craig Gundry, which is the architect of many of these programs. He's just a brilliant individual.
Craig just blows my mind.
Of
Every
course,
time I
yeah.
talk to him, it's
Yeah.
like I have to tell me more.
Yeah.
Tell me more. I
Yeah.
love, and I always refer. Anytime I see something pop up, I've seen you post on like LinkedIn or something about some event that he's talking. I push that out to all my alumni members. I'm like, Craig Gundry is just, I don't know, he's like an anomaly.
Yeah, he's in
It's one of the most intelligent people I know.
yeah, he's in Holland right now teaching military the anti-terrorism program.
No, I love listening to him talk, and some people are like, it's like, man, he just goes and goes. And I've asked Craig, I was like, do you have like a photographic memory or something?
He does.
He's like, no, I don't.
Yeah, he does.
I'm like, I think you do. I was like, because, you start talking and it's just like, it just comes out.
Mm-hmm.
And, me doing presentations and stuff, I remember back in the day, I could barely get CCBPI out of my mouth on the radio when I first got. I'm like, what are we saying we did with?
Yeah.
And I didn't even fully understand the concept until you started having me teach the course.
Yeah.
For new hires, and then that opened up my eyes to a lot of different things. Especially working in those areas.
CCBPI is a good example of that. We're working with a city in Texas right now on implementing a new public safety strategy in the midst of all this pressure that's coming about how to manage law enforcement and budgeting and so on and so forth. And CCBPI, Character and Community-Based Protection Initiative, is a real viable option for them. And it meets the needs of what the community is looking for at the same time, what officers should be skilled at.
It definitely boils down to community policing.
It is,
I
but
think.
from a different perspective, not a policing perspective, but from a protection perspective.
Right.
So it's not about making arrests. It's about the idea of being able to influence.
Building relationships.
That's right. Then you're able to influence behavior, and behavior then results in consequences, good or bad, depending on how you're able to influence the outcome of situations.
Yeah, no, it's, I look back on what we used to do back in the day when I was out there and learning about what you were able to do with a lease.
Yeah.
An apartment lease. People don't understand what they're signing at that time. It's so powerful.
Ironically, I'll give you an example of how this multi-service approach is. We were approached to get into an apartment community that was very escalated and had a lot of high crime by a client that we were doing executive protection for. And he was like, I own these properties and nobody can handle it and the police department's not responding, and can you help us out? And we said, okay, the first thing we would do is we'd approach it from a threat assessment perspective, right? Mm-hmm. So the threat assessment would drive every tactic, every strategy that we deploy, and if it didn't work, we'd replace it and try something else. And ironically, that's what started our uniform division. And so it wasn't intentional in the apartment community space. For us, it was a more corporate space that we wanted to do it in.
Right.
But listen, the market comes to you, you take it, and you go with it.
Yeah.
Even if you don't like it, you need to stabilize your revenue stream if you're going to operate a business. And the sad part about it is, really, to be really candid, the sad part about it is that you want to grow, but the more you grow, the less of a practitioner you can be, because you're managing people, you're managing clients, you're managing liabilities, you're managing, systems, just an HR system for 400 people. I mean, that's, and the liability that comes with every one of their actions. Every time somebody does something wrong or didn't act when they should have acted, and you have a liability case. The more you grow a business, be ready for that, the more you have to develop your skill set as a business owner and not necessarily a practitioner. Those are two different things.
Definitely.
And one will pay the price for the other.
Definitely. Part of the reason why I started up my businesses is, I was on a workplace violence detail, and I'm sitting there 12-hour shift, making like $45 an hour, which is like $540 a day, which is great. I mean, that's great money. But at one point I realized, I said, I'm capped right then and there. Mm-hmm. I cannot make any more than that in that day. So why can't I just start my own business?
Sure.
I'll pay somebody and then I'll make a little bit of money off that, off of, and grow
With
from
that
there.
Comes liability insurance requirements, comes, all sorts of other things that when we first started, I may not have been ready for in 1992. When we had EDSI, it was us and subcontractors. So a lot of what you do now, we would do then. It would be depending on where in the country the client was, we'd be able to move assets and lock in assets to go on that detail and handle that detail. When we went into the CIS model, that required hiring employees, a lot of them. And so that changed the dynamics a lot. You know, you have to have relationships day in, day out with your employees. And, you know, if somebody's not having a great day that day, you're going to be dealing with that, you know. So
I used to always just remember you walking around with a cigar. That was it.
Yeah.
And then what was the Bat Cave where y'all were at?
SSR, yeah. So,
Secret Squirrel Room.
Secret Squirrel Room. Yeah, but I mean, in the end, you have to have your space to be able to work and get away from everyone so that you could think. Because if not, if you spend your time in the pool of people, you're always your head is always full of whatever their issues are to you. That's why I always recommend you go to someone's office so that you can leave anytime you need to. Right? When they come to your office, you're kind of in a position where they leave when they want to, or else you got to push them out the door. Yeah. So you can accomplish that by going out to them, but when it's time for you to withdraw, then you withdraw to a place that you can think and work.
S2, you know, you were talking about that, training people to have them operate them the way you want them to.
For CIS, yeah.
That's one of the things I started my course for, was like a vetting. You know, I think if I spend a week with somebody, I know if I want to put them with my client or not.
Sure, absolutely.
Now, of course, as we both know, there have been some that slip through the cracks.
That always happens.
It does happen.
And
But
the bigger you are, the more it happens.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. So, and one guy can cost you a client. I mean, it's very simple. I mean, one person can cost you that client, or that client will never come back to you. Even though you had nothing to do with it, you didn't control that, and he was outside of your policies and procedures. The client may not see it that way. Yeah. You know?
I've definitely experienced that one firsthand. So I'm still learning lessons as it goes on. Things evolve.
We try to pick people that, in the executive protection threat management space, we try to pick people that are independent thinkers, that have experience, and that would treat, and a lot of them do because they're working as a subcontractor to many folks. So they operate themselves in their own mind as a business owner in a way. And that's a better candidate to do the work than hiring somebody who just came out of training and is just looking for placement.
Most of my guys are either late 40s, early 50s, and that's
seasoned.
what I like. I like gray. I like experience. You know, we're talking about my pain in the ass over there. I call him PETA.
He's good.
You know, but he's seasoned. You know, he can make decisions on his own.
And he's one of the few. I'm not going to name him, but I'll tell you, he's one of the few people in law enforcement that can make a transition effectively to a threat management profession. They don't all have that ability to do it. Yeah. You know, and it's because it's a hard mindset. It's a hard mindset change. And so that's one of the things that you have to look for when they say, I was a SEAL, I was this, I was, you know, a retired cop, I was this, I was that. You know, I appreciate all that. Thank you for your service. But when you hit this place at CIS, you're new. Yeah. Yeah. And if you're not able to handle that, then you won't fit.
Yeah. We had the same thing happen overseas when I got to Blackwater. And first thing they did, they set me down with, and I remember the program manager at the time, former Special Forces guy, and he's like, man, whatever you did in your past, that's awesome and all. He's like, what can you do for us now? He's like, that's all we care about. You made it through the vetting process. So are you a team player? And that's what I like. I like team players. Yeah. I do have another guy that I just brought on. He's been working for a client. We just actually wrapped it up 2 days ago. Tuesday was the final day. Sorry I didn't send you that text. Yeah. But they absolutely love him. And they sent me a nice long text and said what a great job he did. And he's younger, very younger. But I gave him a chance. He came through my course, and I was impressed with him. And like I said, he came on a referral. So I'm like, okay, let's see what this guy's got. Great mindset. But he is probably the youngest that I've had employed with me.
Age isn't all, I mean, it's not about that. It's about how they fit into your organization with your training and the mindset you require of them. I've had trained professionals leave their guns in corporate bathrooms. I've had, you've had, unintentional discharges. You've had, it only takes one.
Well, I haven't had one.
No, not you, but you've had staff that, I've had staff that have unintentional discharges. And it's there's a certain sense of, maturity that even a 45-year-old man may not have. Yeah. Those guys have to fit in, and they have to fit in tight because they're with your biggest clients and your closest, clients that you have a relationship with.
talking about the right fit, Hector.
Hmm.
I hired Hector
Yeah.
as a unarmed security. I
Yeah.
think he was like 19 or
He was
20,
20. I
20 at
lost
the
my
time.
shit. Excuse my language, but we weren't hiring anybody under 21 with a gun. So, yeah.
And look how far he went. I watched his progression. And when he got promoted to vice president.
He became vice
I
president of
I
Protection
called
Services.
him up and I said, you know what? I said, throughout all my time with CIS, that was my goal. I said, you achieved what I couldn't achieve. I was like, congrats on you, man.
Yeah.
I was like, you are. It's just watching him grow over the years.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
I've always been impressed with him, and you know, definitely talented individual.
Very
He's
adaptable.
going to go far in
He
this
will.
industry. He's
If
going to
he
continue to
chooses to
grow
stay in it.
if
Yeah.
he stays. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
But I think we can say that with most of the leadership in CIS. Um, they were all capable. They were all to a certain level. I mean, you never want to push them past their capability level, their Peter principle. But everybody within leadership either belonged where they were or was capable of moving higher.
yeah. I got promoted very fast,
You did, yeah.
and which I appreciate that. But I think I grew too fast.
Probably. So in leadership, I talk about the bottle of wine, and those are lessons learned because we have a leadership program that we teach.
Yeah.
And building leaders, because when you're dealing with hundreds of people, you have to have solid leadership. They have to have a solid core of virtues, not values. Okay, so leaders with values change the values. I mean, you value that drink today, it may change your brand tomorrow. You know, values are a movable object. Core value or virtue values are movable. Virtues are not. They're at your core.
Mm-hmm.
When you can find leaders that have a core virtue of responsibility and servitude, that's the guys you want. And so in our leadership program, the opening up if you promote somebody too soon, to me, it's the equivalent of opening up a nice bottle of wine before it's time, right? And you ruin the wine because you didn't let it sit, age
Right.
properly, right? So when you do that to a young leader, you put him in a position where that pressure and the lack of capabilities may really destroy his capabilities long term as a leader because you didn't give it time for him to mature, like a good bottle of wine. So we became very sensitive in our leadership training and selection process at CIS because of those things.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember Al Perotti coming in and teaching. I've still got that certificate.
Yeah,
You know.
we bring outside speakers. We do everything we could to build our leadership teams.
Yeah, one of the biggest things I liked is secondary weapons training.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you definitely
Important.
push that
Mm-hmm.
out on everybody at no charge. You know,
Mm-hmm.
guys, you wanted them to have a complete toolbox to do their job.
Yeah.
So they are always just going to the hammer.
Whether it's tools on your person, your everyday carries, whether it's your verbal de-escalation skills, whether it's your critical thinking, all those are tools that sometimes you find lacking in one form or another when you have some folks that aren't properly vetted.
Well, I've got many questions for you that we're going to talk afterwards.
Okay.
Because I need some, more advice. It's like,
Well,
I'm going to start calling you Dad when
well,
I start
sure.
doing business.
I'm not that old, man.
So,
Listen, I mean, bottom line is, I would recommend anybody to have the experience and the privilege of creating a business. We've been in business for 30 years now, right? 29 years. And we sold our uniform division completely. All we do now is consulting, training, program development, and threat management services. And so I have a lot more free time all of a sudden that I'm not managing all these issues.
hence Friday
Nice.
afternoon cigar drinks.
Exactly. So I would, I would recommend anyone in this business that has a mindset to run a business to do this, but be prepared for what you're expected to achieve. Now, are you going to be able to retire doing threat management work? Probably not.
No.
Not unless you're well situated with a corporate in-house security department that has a retirement plan of some kind, an investment plan, 401k. Have a plan. I mean, it's one thing when we're young and we're doing executive protection, threat management work.
I think you asked me that a couple weeks ago. Eric, what's your plan?
What's your plan?
Yeah.
Because at some point, you're going to get to 55, 60 years old, and you're going to go, where am I at? What am I doing? What's my exit strategy? And a lot of guys in this business since 1989 that I've met, may not have fallen in the right places, at the end of the day. So plan that out. I mean, go enjoy if you're young. Go enjoy doing the details, get the experience. But at some point, get some idea of where you want to go to build your future and, more importantly, your retirement and your exit.
You know what I tell everybody? Everybody comes to me and they're like, hey, or they'll post in a group, what's the best advice you can give to me? I'm just breaking into the industry. You know what I tell them? Get out.
Yeah.
Go get a cybersecurity degree.
It's a long road because this business is built on trust, right? So if you come in and nobody knows you, you haven't worked in any details, then how can we trust that you're going to be able to perform at the level we need you to?
Yeah.
So trust is the cornerstone. If you violate that trust, as I see these bodyguards all the time that, these books and writing show and tells and, talking to the media about their clients, there's no way in hell I would hire a guy like that ever, right? So the trust is is a cornerstone to build your reputation. And without that one cornerstone of trust, you've got nothing in this business.
I have a lapel pin insignia that every graduate gets once they complete the course and stuff. And I went out last year or year before. I went to Malibu to train up somebody's detail. And they put me up in a nice beach house for the week and everything else. It's Malibu. Hated it, by the way. Hate California. Mm-hmm. But when I was on the plane, I don't like to... I was like, all right, I'm wear my jacket, because I don't want to pack it in my suitcase, but I have my lapel pin there. And I'm traveling in first class because I got a bad back. I'm not going to...
Is that the excuse, or you're just used to it?
Well... the little flight attendant was sitting there, and I'm sitting in row 1, and I get up, and we're waiting for the door to open, and the lady's asking me about my lapel pin. I said, oh, it's a work thing. I don't have time to explain it to you. And she's like, still looking at it, and she's like, but what is it? And I said, I have a school. I train bodyguards, and I hate that word, but it is what it is. The only way you can equate that to somebody. And she's like, oh, so you can teach me how to fight. I'm like, no, that's not what it is. Then she finally comes to realization. She's like, you're probably like very focused on things. You look at details. And I said, you talking about the guy that's sitting in row 21 with the gun? And she's like, how did you know that? And I'm like, well, it doesn't take a rocket science. I'm sitting in row 1. He's the one that leaned in, printing, tight shirt, full frame firearm. And he leans in and says, I'm your Leo on the flight, Wasn't an air marshal. Air marshal would have been much more conservative. He was traveling with a weapon, but he has to let the pilot know. And that's the things that I don't think people really, truly pick up on. I'm getting ready to do a course. It's basically a security awareness course for females. I don't believe in the whole Jackie Chan. I'm a 3-hour thing. Let's learn about our surroundings and stuff. So, but I think we're running out of time though. But Casey, thank you so much for agreeing to come out here and stuff.
Absolutely.
I definitely value our friendship, our relationship, and please don't ever think that I take anything for granted.
No, I never. But I'm an open door. If any of your guys want to reach out, they need help to think through how to do stuff.
Yeah.
I've been there, and we've been through the hard times, and digging the couch for the quarters, and eat ramen noodles. And
I've heard about the ramen noodles.
Still won't have ramen noodles in his house. I keep them just to remind me where I come from.
Yeah.
So if I can help anybody or give them advice and kind of guide them into the places they need to be cautious of, to make sure that they work through the paradigm of building a business, feel free to reach out.
Well, hey, cheers, buddy. Thanks, Casey. I appreciate it, man.
Anytime.
Cheers.